Hello everyone, welcome to another session of Watch Training Basics. My name is Travis, I'm the watchmaker here at Central Watch Repairs. Today we're going to cover replacing a glass in a watch that's pressure fit. Now these are probably the easiest glasses to replace in a watch. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so I've got two examples right here. I'll start off with the most simple one and we'll save this little fun one for later. So let's move this aside for the moment. Okay, we've got a customer that's come in. For one reason or another, they want to get the glass replaced. Let's get that a little bit focused right there. There we go. So, first thing we want to do, we want to flip it over, take the back off. There are a number of tools that we can use. Today we're just going to use the case back knife. We're going to get it under the lip and give it a little click. There we go. Now, as you can see, I'm wearing my finger cots tonight. Whenever you're handling a watch, always wear your finger cots. The last thing we want to do is we want to touch the movement with our hands. We don't want to do that. We don't want to leave any marks. We don't want to leave any residue. Because as we all know, the oil in our fingers is quite acidic. It'll edge the movement. The oil will get in there. It'll gum things up. We don't want to get any debris inside the watch at all. First thing we're going to do here, we're always going to take the battery out, just like working on your car. We always want to take the battery off first. We'll set it to the side. Next thing we want to do, we want to take the movement out. So as we learned in our last session, use the stem release point, push it down, and that crown should just pop out. Oh, where am I here? It's a bit hard to see under the camera. There we go. Stem pops right out, like so. What we want to do, we just want to get a little container here, just to keep all our parts nice and safe. Now very carefully here, lift out the movement. We don't want to lift up the movement too hard, always support it, because the last thing we want to do is to pull off the dial. Oh. There we go, let's sit that in a nice safe spot. And then we can get to it later. Now, got a nice empty case here. Now, since this is a pressure fit glass, it's going to pop out. What it has is a little ring which holds it in via pressure, and it's a press fit. So now, most dress brands, you can just pop it out with your thumb, or we can use our press with the appropriate die. Now you've got a couple of different types of presses. We've got this one here with the plastic dies in it, and what that'll do, that'll push down and pop it out. And then you've got the presses with the metal dies. Now, when dealing with glass, what we want is the plastic dies. because as you push down with the plastic dies, they have a little bit of give in them. They flex a little bit, and that'll stop cracking the glass. So for this watch here, we're just going to pop it out. There we go. As you can see, there's our glass. We'll set it aside for the moment. Now, I'm going to switch over to the microscope here. What we're going to do is just have a closer look at what's going on here. So, as you can see here, we've got a bit of plastic right here, and that's a ring that goes all the way around the watch. And when we put the glass in, it's a bit hard to show on camera, but what that'll do, that'll give it enough friction so we can push it down and fit nice and snugly into the watch. Now, always want to check the quality of this ring. It's easy just to pop out. Right, and here we are. That's what we're looking at here. Let's swap to the other camera. So these little rings here are called eye rings. They're ordered by the size, according to the glass. So you have diameter, the height, and the thickness. So the height and the thickness, that's 0.45 mil and 0.9 mil. You can order these as a kit. Most of you should probably already have that already. So when we're looking at the eye ring, let's get our handy sheet of paper here. What you're looking at with the profile it's a step down profile. So when the glass goes in there and gets pushed down, it works its way down and slowly gets squeezed into it. And that's what keeps the glass in, to pressure fit. So you will find that it only has one way up. So you have a thicker side and a thinner side. Thinner side up. Slide that in there. So that ring, because they're plastic, especially if it's an older watch, you'll find that they get quite brittle, and when you take the glass out, bits of it will come out with it. So always make sure, just like the rear gasket, it's nice and flexible, and that'll make sure it hangs onto the glass, because if it's hard and brittle, there's no way for that ring to give, and it's not going to hold the glass in. You're going to come back with an angry customer because that glass has fallen out. Now, back to the glass. Right, now we want to replace this glass. So we want to measure it. So grabbing our trusty calipers, Zero it off. First thing we want to do is measure the thickness. So this one's here, it says 1.1, but the closest thickness is at 1 millimeter. And then we want to measure the diameter. 17.5. So here we go, I've got a glass here that's perfect. So 17.5 by 1 millimeter. Now, whenever handling a new glass, you want to try and be careful as much as you can. We don't want to get our fingerprints on it. We don't want to scratch it up. And we don't want to get dust and debris all over it. Now, sometimes out of the package, they're a little bit grimy. So microfiber cloth, get a really good clean down. Use our blower, get rid of any dust. Now, with standard flat glass, there's no right or wrong way to stick it up. And we can just sit it gently over the top of our watch. Now, all that we need to do is just press it down. So, grab our handy press. Get the right size dies. So what we want, fit just over the watch. And we want to make sure that the one at the back gets nice and flat. So, in our handy press, got our dies in there. Like I said, remember to use the plastic dies because they always have a little bit of give in them. So in that way they flex with the glass. Now I'll just get this in here because it's a bit hard to show sideways. I want to get the watch nice and centered. And just give it a squeeze to center it in. Now if you've done it correct, you can give it a good push and it's not going to come out. You can see the glass is nice and flat. It's not sticking up any weird angles. It's nice and flush with the watch because I've used the right thickness. Now I've got a little bit of a fingerprint in there, so let's give that a bit of a wipe out. Get rid of any dust. And now it's time to do the reverse. So we're going to get our movement and dial, which is all assembled. What we have here is a nice little case cushion. Set the dial on the cushion, and what we want to do, we just want to lay the case over the top, finger on top, hold it together, spin it around, and we're in. Just make sure it's nice and seated, it's nice and straight. Stem and crown, slide it in, make sure it's going into the right spot, and just with a little bit of a half turn, push it in. brand new battery. We don't want the customer coming back in a couple of weeks saying their battery's flat. Case back on. Now I've already re-lubed this gasket. But always lube the gasket before you put the case back on. And there we are. It's a simple, nice, let's get that focused. There we go. Simple, nice changeover. Now this one's not running because this is one of my junk pile, one for spare parts. And that's a nice simple change in the glass in a watch. Alright, let's move on to the next one. So, this one here has seen much better days. You can see here it's had a very hard knock to it. We've got glass all over the dial. Now, if you ever see a watch this bad here, it's going to need a service. Because you see all those little bits of glass, they're going to make their way down underneath the dial, under the date wheels, into the movement, and they're going to get jammed up. No ifs or buts about it, it's going to happen. So if we just replace the glass now without giving it a service, the customer's going to be back saying their watch has stopped working. And you want to know why? Because it's got bits of glass stuck in it. But for today, I'm just going to give you a rundown on how to replace the glass, and then further on down the track we'll cover servicing. So, I've already taken the case back off. What we want to do next is remove the movement. So, stem release point. Pull out the stem. Get our trusty little container out. Now we can see with this one here, it's got a little movement holder in there. We want to remove it, so spudger, always support the movement while we lift it up. Last thing we want to do is to lift the movement off the dial. There we go. Battery out. Non-conductive tweezers. Here we go. Now, make sure you're not handling these with bare fingers, because dials are very delicate. Get fingerprints on them. You're not going to get it off. Now, let's have a closer look at this dial. Right. Okay. Let's get this focused up. Alright. You can see here all those little bits of glass. If they make it underneath that dial, as you can see here, we've already got some here on the date ring. Just below the 5 there, can you see that? A little bit of glass. Now, as much as you clean that dial, So you can even see it on the hands there. Those little bits of glass will have made it into the movement of the watch. So this one's going to need servicing. Because what we want to do, we want to give the watch back to the customer in the best condition possible. And it's better off to let them know now that, hey look, you got bits of glass in there. They're going to make it into the movement. It may not stop down, but they'll work their way in and you'll come back because your watch has stopped. If it's a simple crack in the glass or scratched glass, it's fine. You can just replace the glass without giving the watch a service, providing the watch is in working condition. But when you got little bits of glass like this, it's always going to need to be some sort of service given to it. If it's a mechanical watch, it'll need to be dismantled, or a quartz watch like this one, we can just replace the movement. Alright. Let's set this dial aside for the moment. Nice safe spot. Now, when we take this glass out, as you can see, it's going to shatter into quite a few pieces. Now, what I do, grab a plastic bag, slide her in there, and we'll seal it off. Let's get this other glass cleaned up. Always keep your work area nice and clean. Rightio. Now we can continue without making a mess. Now, when you're pushing the glass out with the press, what we want is a dome die. And that gives us something to push the glass into. So what we want is that dome to be slightly larger than the glass, and it gives it that little piece to push it into. There we go. So let's get it in the press. There we go. What we want to do, we want to push it out. Oh, can you hear that? Beautiful. And as we can see there, got the glass out of the watch. Now, how are we going to measure up? That's the next question. Alright. Let's get this case out. Now before we do anything else, let's give the brush down and a blowout, just to get rid of any residual glass that may be in there. What we want is a nice clean slate to work off. So here we go. Let's get that focused. We don't want any residual glass left in there. Oh, got a little bit of arm cheese there. We'll give that a clean up as well. Alright. Now, before we do anything else, we just want to measure the thickness of the glass. So we'll get out a large piece, measure the thickness. I've already measured this one, it's 2mm thick. And we get rid of that glass. Nothing worse than getting glass stuck in your finger, I'll tell you that for free. Now, let's take out that eye ring. There we go. Okay. So this one here is a bit stark, it's not very flexible. We'll replace it with a new one. So what we want to do is we want to measure up the diameter of our glass. Our trusty calipers. Get them in there. So we've got 35.25. Now, that's not the diameter of the glass we want to take in. We also want to take into account the thickness of the eye ring as well. So some simple maths. 35.25 minus the thickness of the eye ring. We've got 345 and 2mm thick. Set that aside for the moment. Got the eye ring here. It's just a matter of, whoop. So remember, thin side up. Fun doing it under the camera, I'll tell you that. There we go. Eye rings in, nice and easy. Want to take out our new glass. Be nice and careful with it. We don't want to scratch it. We don't want to get it dirty. Don't want to smudge it up. Give it a clean down with our microfiber cloth. This one here is a Virgin 7854, just in case you're wondering. Lint free. Gets it nice and clean. So it's just the same now as our other watch. We get it in there, just in place. You can see there we need to push it down. We just get the right size dies for it. Now, when you're choosing the die, you don't want one that's smaller than the glass. What we want to be doing is we want to be pushing around the outside rim of the glass, because that's where the most resistance is going to be. So we choose one. It's pretty much the same as the glass. Oh, you're gonna have to pardon me there. It's a bit blurry. There we go. And then we'll choose a die for underneath. See, that's a little bit too small. Next size up. There we go. Let's get that into our press. Like so. We'll make sure it's nice and square. And we just push. Now sometimes I'll just rotate the watch a bit as we push it in, just make sure it's nice and straight. I'm going to do this off camera. Now, of course, if any of you want any questions, feel free to post any questions down below, or you can email me, essentialwatch@mrminute.com.au. And even some of you have even got my number. There we go. That's all pushed in. Okay. Let's give this glass a bit of a buff, get those marks off from the press. Give it a bit of a blowout. There we go. Alright. Let's set that aside. Let's have a look at this dial. Okay. Alright. Still a little bit on dial planing. Now, rule of thumb for watchmaking is you never... Oh, let's get that focused. There we go. If any of you got any suggestions on cameras that may be more suitable than this one, please let me know. I'm open all ears. Okay, so rule of thumb, never ever touch the dial. You don't want to clean it. If you do have any dust or anything on it, what we can use is a little bit of Rodico. Or, let's see if we've got them here. None close at hand. Alright, you can get little sticky dots, silicone dots, which can work wonders. Let's get a fresh bit of Rodico. Always use fresh Rodico between jobs. Last thing you want to do is try to clean something and have a bit of hard residue or something on it and scratch up whatever you're using. Let's switch to the microscope. Okie dokie. So, Rodico is an oil absorbent putty. And it also comes in very handy for just picking up little bits of debris. So now what we want to do is just dab. Never wipe. Dials are very fragile because they are just painted. It is very, very easy to remove any printing. But as you can see here, with a little bit of time and effort and patience, we can clean it up quite well. Don't use any water, don't use any solvents. As safe as you may think it is, they are very, very fragile. So normally with a watch like this, like I was saying before, would service it. Just being a cheap quartz watch, we'll just replace the movement. And when we've got the dial off, we'll give it a full clean down. And we're just dabbing off that foreign material. We can see there just how well it works. Don't use a brush. If you try and brush off those little particles, they'll put in little tiny scratches into the dial, and you'll never ever be able to fix that. You can see there just how well, a little bit of time, took just clean up that little bit of debris. But for the sake of time, we're just going to leave it at that. Just for this video. All that we're doing is just covering and repairing the glass. We can cover this at another time. Yeah. Now that you've finished using the Rodico, throw it away. Don't reuse it, because now that's got little tiny bits of glass embedded in it. And if you try and clean up something else, you can scratch it, you can leave behind residue. So I'll just get rid of it. Okay. So same as the other watch, we get our little movement cushion on top. Lay it down, finger on top, and just flip it over. Now just grabbing it with your fingers and trying to put it into the watch. There we go, we've got our stem and crown. Get in there, and when you put it in, just give it a little half of a turn until you hear it click in. Give that a bit of a blowout, just get rid of any dust that we may have picked up. Of course, in the real world, we've already replaced this movement, and we put a brand new battery in there. But I'm going to do this a bit later on. Movement holder. Case back, and we're done. I'm going to leave that case back on because I've still got work to do on this one. But as we can see there, got a nice new glass. It's free of fingerprints, free of debris. There's no dust or dirt on the dial. give it back to the customer in nice, clean, working condition. And of course, before we put the movement in, it gives you a good chance just to clean off that little bit of arm cheese. You can do as much as you can while the movement and dial are out, while you've got the case on its own. Want to set a good impression for the customer, give it back in good working order. And like I said, if anybody has suggestions on cameras that I can use, especially for macro stuff like this, please let me know. Right, well, thank you again for joining me. Next session we're going to be covering faults in quartz watches and how to identify them for when you go to repair them. And of course, if you need anything else, feel free to contact me. Send me a like, leave a message down below. I will see you in the next session. Enjoy.